Okay, I think we're going live here, or semi-live, being recorded. Welcome everybody to the next Dead Famous show, and we have our endeared guest here. We have Linda, the Comanche psychic, and we have Andrea from Lilac Lantern Tarot, the two relatives, the two sisters, as now they're being known. So they look more and
Can
more
you tell
alike
us
every time we
apart?
do the shows. Yeah,
Your sisters from another mother.
absolutely.
Spiritual sisters, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
I think the more we do this Dead Famous, you're going to get more and more similar. They look like twins in another year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We do. I don't know. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But we figured out we have the same lineage on our father's side.
Yeah.
So maybe there's someone in the family tree that we're both connected to.
I have blue eyes, right?
Yeah, the green blue.
My dad had green eyes.
Ah.
And my great grandmother had blue eyes and curly blonde hair. But that's Irish, Scottish, that whole bit.
Funny. Well, in Ancestry.com, I still think you're going to come across something that's going to show you guys are still in the same
I'm going to
family.
look it up because I've owned Ancestry for 10, maybe longer than that, since 2009.
Great.
I work my pachikas off on there. I even go to the cities where I can't find information and try to pull it up in the records there.
Mm.
So
Fantastic. All right. Well, with no further ado, we can get into today's show. We're each going to read on and bring forth 3 dead famous people each. And as is customary, I thought we'd go ladies first. And so we'll do a rotation. We'll start off with Linda, and then we'll go with Andrea, then we'll go with myself. And so Linda, away with the show, as they say. So
away we go. Thanks for calling again. Thanks for calling me a lady. My first person is Lorraine Warren. And I went to look her up to get her date of birth and date of death. And when I was looking at her, I had the worst headache today. Immediately started feeling stress. So I did get her. She also had a husband named Ed. Lorraine was born 1/31/27 and died 4/18/2019. Ed was born 12/5/26. He died in 2006. And if folks don't know about this, they're the ones that dealt with a lot of demonic stuff. They wrote a lot of books. A lot of those movies are based on them. She said loosely based. So they took portions of it and expanded it. Now, she told me as clear as day, there is such things as demons, because I guess a lot of people are saying hogwash, but she's not here to try to convince them. And also she was Catholic, but where she's at right now, the whole Catholic thing is different over there. It's weird. There's still that great love. She was a good person. She gave a lot to feed the hungry as well as take care of animals. But she said, Linda, mark my words, you have to be careful because you can go into states where a negative energy will attach to you. And a lot of this stuff, the books they wrote, Ed was the salesman. Mm-hmm. So a lot of stuff he maybe stretched it, stretched some of the information, but it was to sell because they wanted people to hear their message. They didn't do it to be ugly or anything, but a lot of the stories they tell are real. And I'm telling you, they're very attached to the Catholic Church with exorcism, and the Catholic Church doesn't talk about it like they do. But let me tell you, that stuff is real. And that's when I started getting the headaches. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, her and Ed aren't in any kind of lower vibration where they're being, hit by demons. But she works through other humans on earth that are working. It could even be male priests. She's working through other humans and helping them to get rid of the demon, the evil. There's evil in the world, she said. And in my life, at one time, I read a guy and I could smell it. I could taste it. It was so ugly that I literally faked the reading because I was scared he would know what I was thinking. Wow. I said, all this stuff, that's my best actress part. I acted very nonchalant. I was shaking by the time he left. And I told the girl that whoever this guy is, he's no good. It's ugly. And he left me, and I came back to that place 2 weeks later. That week later, he had murdered 2 people. So yeah, he was evil. I could smell it. But I've been very lucky. She said I have very strong, powerful guides that are with me that protect me, you know. So yeah, don't mess with Ouija boards or any of that stuff, she said. But it's real. First thing she did was tell me it was real. And let me tell you, when I got to her husband, though, I started getting a headache. She's very happy to see her husband. So I guess they were lifelong, you know, energetically, they were connected together. But yeah, so that's what I have to say about Lorraine Warren. She says,
great.
thank you. Thank you. She's a beautiful light. She's actually a really good person. But she did say some of the stuff was stretched, which I didn't expect her to say.
Yeah, I think I guess in the industry they call it artistic license, right?
Right.
They took our
And
artistic license.
sometimes it was even against her will. Sometimes she didn't want this stuff to happen.
Right.
Sometimes Addie was even arguing with her, like, oh, come on, it helps sell more books. But I can tell they took some of it, but it's loosely based on reality.
Sure, sure.
So
Well, fascinating read. Thanks for that. Yeah, fascinating.
Wow.
They have a history across, you know, they touch many different, you know, literature and movies and all that. So they've left a real footprint, you know, on many industries.
right, even The Exorcist was not all everything they said, but some of it was. But boy, that movie sure made a lot of money.
It did start a whole trend in a number of movies. Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Andrea, you're up at bat.
All right. Well, a little bit lighter fare. I picked Garry Shandling, a wonderful comedian. Oh my goodness. I just love all of his work. He passed away at 66 years of age from a health-related matter. He originally started out writing for Sanford and Son and Welcome Back, Kotter. So those are some of the things he worked out. He's obviously known as a stand-up comedian as well. It's Garry Shandling's show was very famous, but to me, I think pretty much the top of any comedy show ever created was the Larry Sanders Show. I mean, that is as close to perfection as you're gonna get. Well written, just hilarious, well acted, well cast, a brilliant show. But he had this very spiritual side. So there's I don't know if you've seen it, it's a documentary called The Zen Diaries of Garry Shandling. So he was a Buddhist. He was big into Zen meditation, things like that. So sort of you think of a comedian being kind of goofy, but this guy certainly had a more spiritual side. So I asked him, how is the afterlife? How is it going there? This is one of the most grounded people I've ever read on. The whole room just went still and grounded and very knowledgeable. I wonder if he might be
on the higher plane.
I think he's like a master, or like attempting to be very knowledgeable. So follow your voice of your soul and learning from spiritual experience, a great teacher. So I do think he's very tapped in. He got the messages he needed in this new life, his new afterlife. So the spiritual answers he was looking for, he has uncovered on the other side. Very interesting man. I would have loved to have a real conversation in real life with him. Back in the day. Did you ever meet him, Linda, in the comedy?
No, but did you see, if you go to YouTube, Garry Shandling was a neighbor of Tom Petty. And they got together and it's hysterical. Tom Petty was on one of his last shows.
He was, yeah. He was on.
Who died first? Garry Shandling died first, right?
He did.
He died in 2016, so I don't know if that was before.
Yeah, he definitely died before.
Okay.
But that was a great show, and it really shows you who he is, and he's really a funny guy.
Really funny guy. So I asked him about what was comedy to you, and he gave me sort of the journey. He was originally frustrated, like a square peg trying to get in a round hole. Hanged Man. And then I had the death card, Angel of Transformation. I'm like, what is that about? So I looked it
Yeah.
up. In 1977, he was in an auto accident and had a near-death experience and drastically changed his life after that and went into comedy. It's amazing that it came in the cards and I looked it up. So this comedy, this near-death experience really put him on a new path and it took flight. I don't know if he got a message when he was having his near-death experience. I think the article said he heard the question, are you going to keep living your life this way?
What was he doing before that, before the accident?
I think he was in advertising, marketing, that kind of thing. So, the average kind of life. And then he, it's like, over here. What does celebrity and all of its entrappings and stuff, what do you have to say about that if someone is wanting to become famous? Stop. It's not where you're going to find your balance. Spirituality is where you're going to find your balance, tapping into what's above. So I know a lot of people think, they'll become famous and they'll be happy. It's not how it works.
No,
Right?
fame has nothing to do with happiness.
And the final message is abundance comes from within. That's where you get your riches.
Excellent.
But wow, he was so grounded. Like he's found his Zen for sure. He's very tapped in, very, very spiritual energy. I'll tell you, the whole room just went.
Wow.
Reading on him.
It's like when I see George Harrison. George Harrison's really in a Zen too.
Just
great energy. I'm going to tap into him again.
Absolutely. A very nice guy. And I remember he was very connected to the house he was in, which I think, I try to remember, there was something going on with the house he was in. It was in a cul-de-sac. I remember it. And he kept like the front of the house, but he built his dream house. And I think that for a long time, they kept up the front of the house, even after he left and passed away. But there was something very connected with that house. It wasn't a magnificent house, but I remember he had to kind of walk down from the street into it. It was kind of a unique cul-de-sac house in the Hollywood Hills there, but he was very connected to it. He used to spend a lot of time there, just relaxing and getting into a Zen mode. Yeah. So
Did you get to meet him?
I did, but
you meet him?
in weird sorts of, I'll tell you, weird places. I met him at the Grammys. So it wasn't like around conventional stuff. He would show up to the Grammys, and then the Grammys would always have like an after party. We had a big buffet table and all that. At the time, my wife was a big fan, so she would go run over to the buffet table when he was there. And I'd go, look, Gary's at the buffet table. So,
Was he nice to her?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big things he did in the industry was he broke the fourth wall. So he would always turn around and talk to the camera, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So it was a big thing he did for the industry. He'd act like he was in the show, and then he'd turn around and he'd talk to the audience, go, can you believe Gilda Radner is giving me this line right now? He always broke the fourth wall. So I just got a cold chill. He's around. I just got a cold chill. So I commend him. Yeah, he did a great job.
Brilliant.
Did he ever get married and have a family or anything?
No.
Well, he was with a woman for a long time. And I don't recall if they got married. He was with a woman for a long time.
They didn't get married. It was the girl on the show that played Darla, I think. The assistant to the other guy, his sidekick. She was on the show for a while.
Yeah.
But he didn't have any kids.
Yeah, I know that, but he was with a woman for a long time, because I know she was there in the latter years too of helping him. He was going through the health crisis and all that. So yeah, great. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful to talk with him. So the first one I'm doing today, and I talked with her yesterday, even today, this morning, Audrey Hepburn. So I thought this was kind of unique in that I really didn't know anything about her. And I just said, come on in. I know that she had a lot of fame all over the world, but I always sensed that she had a very kind spirit, and she did. So she's kind of stepping through right now. For her, the whole journey was about, well, it was certainly about balance. And we brought this up in some other stars here, balance in life. So she never saw fame as that one big goal. But what she tried to do was use it as a platform, like a lot of very successful people do. Once they get the platform, now how can I help the world? So for her, it was all about not only fame and kind of pushing herself in many areas in movies and in Broadway and in the arts, but she also worked to learn like 6 different languages so that she could absolutely communicate all over the world. But then she became in later life very big about getting involved in things like UNICEF and For the Children Fund, and even one like was it the Congressional Medal of Honor or something of that nature. But she was very awarded earlier in her career, but absolutely understood that she was going to use that to try to help the world. She told me a couple of other interesting things. Now, I didn't know a lot about her, but I remember she was always associated with Gregory Peck. And I thought like maybe she had even married Gregory Peck, but she never did. But they had a very strong friendship and a very strong love. She was married twice, but never to Gregory Peck. But they maintained a really strong friendship. In fact, she won her first, like she was saying, her first Oscar, I think it was, with Gregory Peck in the first movie she had done. But they remained very, very strong friends her whole life. And then even towards the end of the life, he was there, even at the very end, helping to facilitate like Lear jets to get her from, I think it was the US back to Europe, kind of in the last days of her life, because she had a very strong form of colon cancer and stomach cancer. So he got involved to try to, I remember, and this was just saying that the whole plane was filled with flowers and, flying her back, for her last trip. So I even got a cold chill. The friendship they had, I'm surprised they never got married, but they were certainly soulmates in life. So there was a lot about that.
He married a beautiful woman now. He was with this woman a long time. Gregory Peck.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was also talking about, her son, very proud of her son, because her son had then moved on after her death. She died, I think, 93. It was 92 or 93. Very soon thereafter, her son created another For the Children Fund, which is still going to this day. So the whole legacy, was all that. The other thing she wanted to make very clear to me, and I think she made it clear to people when she was here in life, was that she never thought she was a great actress or a great singer. She was very clear about that. I never stood up I'm saying I'm a great actress or a great singer, but she won lots of style awards, and her message to a lot of women at the time was create your own style, push forward, everything's attainable, everything you see me attain, you can attain. So she was all about, I want to spread the message around that, be your best self kind of a thing. So a really wonderful woman. I didn't know a lot about her, but a very kind spirit. And for such kind of a docile kind of a woman that she was, she really pushed forward in a lot of areas, languages. And she was she was an EGOT winner, right? So Emmy, Oscar, Grammy, Tony Award, and BAFTA, which is like the Oscars for Europe. So wonderful lady and a forceful driver. And I think the last thing she was telling me was that the way she went through life, and she wants everybody to go through life, push forward with a lot of force and a lot of energy. Just push forward, even if it feels like a stormy condition in your life. Keep moving forward to get to that the end of the storm, to get to the sunlight. So anyway, I sent her a lot of grace and love, and she was a wonderful lady, and nice spending time with her. So
nice.
That's it.
She seems like a very Vogue type person, but not connected in that ego sense.
No.
She just was stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
But she could care less, she seems like someone that could kick up her heels.
And she didn't wear her all her ego on her sleeve, so to speak, because even when people come after and say, you're not a great actress, you're not a great singer, she'd be like, I know, but I'm trying to move forward and help and provide some value and, raise people's spirits, and I have other things to do in life. But I thought that was very commendable of her when, people try to get the best of her. Says, yeah, I know, I'm not saying I'm best actress or best singer.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Lovely.
All right, Linda, I think you're up.
Oh, I always had a crush on Gregory Peck. Is he on the list? We need to look at him next time.
I guess we'll have to do him next time. Maybe that'll be one for you, Linda.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, so I have Chief Joseph Medicine Crow, who was a Crow Indian who lived to be 102 years old. He got a master's. He did writings and lectures on Little Bighorn. I think he was the last chief to die.
Mhm.
Last warrior chief to die. When I went to tap into him, it wasn't like this big commotion. It's, yeah, what do you want? He's with his ancestors, and he's very, very happy. He did live to be old, but part of it, one of the agreements, was that he was trying to give out the messages as much as possible. Because my peoples, my indigenous tribes, we lost our ways. I was just reading an article how, we were made to cut our hair, not say our name, and not speak our language. And he continually wanted to give that back to the community. He's very proud of Deborah Hayland, who's our newer interior chief, who is a tribal. She's not the same tribe, but he said, he was all about, he was very wise, very smart, and he was all about education, etc. But he is in a realm of high, it's like vibrating, so it's pretty high. And he's saying that part of the stuff that happened to the indigenous tribes being thrown out of our own country, but not everybody, it's systematically coming to where people are craving more of the messages from tribal people. Because, my ancestors lived here. You consumed everything from the buffalo. You didn't waste. They didn't believe you owned the earth. And these kind of messages are with a higher spirit. And these are the things that he's working with through tribal members that are on earth. But there's something with Deborah Hayland. I don't think he's stepped into her body, but I feel like they all knew she was going to be able to step to the forefront. So they're working with her. But it's almost like this feeling of I am nobody. It's weird. He's this chief and he has all these accolades, and then he's like acting like, well, really, I'm just here to send the message.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really beautiful. Great guy.
Nice spirit, very humble.
Very humble,
Yes.
very wise.
Yes.
If he was alive right now, we'd be consuming all his information. So now I didn't know there's books about him and books he wrote. I'm going to be checking them out.
Great.
In
Wonderful.
fact, the first thing he said was, tell everybody to buy my books. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So that's it on him, that he didn't have a lot to say, but his power was so, whew,
Wow.
hell yeah.
And those
Wonderful.
messages need to come back out, like living in harmony with the earth, not destroying
Yes, the earth doesn't belong to us.
That's right.
We do not own anything. We think we do because the white man came in here and that's mine. That's mine. Oh, we'll make an agreement, but guess what? We're going to bow out and take it anyway. So he's saying that we're slowly but surely, because the earth is shifting, finding out that we really don't own anything. Oh, you know who was there? What's his name? They forgave him, by the way, at Little Bighorn. I can see him as clear as day. Custer's there.
Okay.
And he's with them. He's part of the environment of teaching others. He's with them. So it was weird. But like they've forgiven him and he's part of this new energy and he's very sorry. Yeah, Custer's with him. I think Custer may have taken another body and came back. But yeah.
I always see when people have life paths that cross here on Earth, it's very common that they cross on the other side too. They're part of some extended related spiritual family. Very common. If you've got some big interaction going on down here, usually parallels to something on the other side too. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was all planned. It was agreed upon. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right, wonderful.
Beautiful.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So Andrea, who do we have coming up next?
Well, Linda, you said you had a crush on Gregory Peck. I had a crush on this one.
What? Who?
Tim Conway.
Oh, I loved him. Oh my
Right?
God.
so funny. I mean, funny to me is the most important thing. And I totally had a crush on Tim Conway. Not maybe your regular choice, but certainly adorable. So obviously well known for being the scene stealer on the Carol Burnett show,
Mhm.
where he made people laugh all the time. He went on to do other things. And he unfortunately passed away at the age of 85, but a long life and, great friendships. He seems to be well respected by everyone. Anything you read, like the other comedians and actors and stuff, high praise to him, and really gracious to work with. And obviously him and Harvey Korman certainly were a
They
duo
had
to
a thing.
watch.
Yeah. I met him at Burbank Studios and he was an extremely nice guy. The one who wasn't so nice was Harvey Korman.
Oh,
He walked around like king for a day, but he was very nice.
aw.
Yeah, Tim used to crack up Harvey Korman all the time on the show. You could see all the old footage. They could never get through
Yes.
the show well. Yeah. So
And then we would laugh so hard because they were
Yes.
laughing because he was laughing so hard.
right.
If he could make them laugh and Carol Burnett, seasoned people, then it just got funnier and funnier. So one of my all-time faves for sure, Tim Conway. So, what was comedy to you? What did it mean to you? I think Tim Conway was very smart. We have the wisdom card. So very, very smart. A little bit of anxiety though. I think he may have had a bit of anxiety. And then he got into a crossroads. So I think he was in the army or military and eventually got out and figuring out what to do next. Kind of dumb luck, I think, that he stumbled into comedy. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, as he's so talented, but he just discovered that creativity and his imagination were so strong that it brought the balance and harmony to his life that he had been thinking about. And I love that when someone sort of stumbles into something and, he wasn't 18 and doing comedy. He was a little bit older when he got into it. So, and just so funny. So I said, what was it like working on the Carol Burnett show? If I could go back in time, I would go back in time and be on the Carol Burnett show, right?
Right. I own all the series. I bought the big, huge thing with
I'm coming
all the Carol
over.
Burnett shows. Yeah.
I'll bring the popcorn and we'll have
There
a
you go.
Carol. So what was it like? Well, it was awesome.
Okay.
He knew they had a hit. He knew it was going to take off. It was like a magic in the air. There was it Bob Fosse or sorry, Bob, who did the costumes? Somebody.
Fosse, I
Bob
think.
Mackey. Bob Mackey.
Bob
Mackey. Fosse's
Yeah.
the choreographer.
Yeah. So, big talents there in the early days. So you could feel that sort of magic on the soundstage. He loved it because he got to be a little devil. He got to be the little devil.
Well, girl, now you got me in the mood for some cake.
I know, right? Hungry. And I said, why did you do that? I mean, it's just everyone knows him for that. Everyone feels so good when they watch those sketches where he made people laugh. He said he would grow a little bit impatient between takes, right? Because, doing a show, they did the dress rehearsal and all this. So a little bit of impatience in the sense that his mind was always working. Like,
Okay.
how can I make it better? And then we have the workaholic, creative workaholic. So just thinking, how can I make it better? He would tap in. He was so smart and so sharp that he would do new lines at the final taping. So that, there'd be what was written, rehearsal, dress rehearsal, final show.
Oh, he ad-libbed.
And they didn't know what was coming. So he just this magic, and he would often have to beg for forgiveness after. or deviating off script. But a lovely man, and he said comedy made him feel worthy.
Wow.
It made him soar. Like, it really brought a lot to him. He really liked making people laugh. And I said, and I love comedy. I love comedians. I'm really drawn to them. So if you've noticed, I have a theme today, picking comedians. And I said, what's your advice on life? Like, what's the advice now looking back? He said, well, you can look at it two ways. Lots of heavy lifting or lots of blessings, right? And to me, this is saying there's lots in the spiritual in your spiritual awakening, your spiritual knowledge, right? That's where all the answers are. So there's two ways you can look at life. You know, that is the glass half full or half empty, and he certainly chose the half full. And he's found a lot and knows a lot now, and I think he's trying to communicate that there's just so much more that you can tap into that will bring you light and joy. But what a wonderful, I was just laughing while I was reading on him, because what a lovely, lovely man. And he knew that making other people laugh was good for them, even though it made him feel good.
Yeah.
It was about giving.
He's a legend. He was a legend.
Legend. Did you
Absolutely.
meet him,
He had
Sterling?
Alzheimer's, right? He had Alzheimer's.
Towards the end. Yeah. Did you ever meet him, Sterling?
I didn't know, but I remember some of the history in the industry, because he actually started out in like McHale's Navy, right?
Yeah.
That's the show
right.
he came
Right.
from.
Oh God, that
And
brings
so
back
he wasn't the seasoned comedian that he became on the Carol Burnett show. And actually, I think at the time, some of the people on the Carol Burnett show were like, we're not sure, if he's the right guy. But he really evolved, came into his own on the Carol Burnett show. But every once you look at the old McHale Navy shows, you're like, wow, how did he evolve from that to what he became? Yeah.
Right.
But
well, I remember being young and our family couldn't wait till Carol Burnett.
Oh, mandatory in the house. Yes.
And I love that remember that Carol Burnett played the secretary?
Mr. Tudball, Mrs.
Yes.
Wig.
Yeah.
yeah.
He was so funny.
That's funny. A lot of good stories around all that. By the way, in the Carol Burnett show, that was never supposed to happen either. That was a weird clause in her contract that said, before my contract ends, if I want a variety show, I can have one. Oh. And so she surprised CBS at the time. They were going to clean her off and say, you're okay, you're done. And I guess her lawyer or husband found that clause and said, hey, we actually like to activate this clause. We want a variety show. Wait a minute. So it was,
and
the
whole thing was kind of, accidental. The CBS did not want to do it. So
thank God they did. I mean, that's
at the time they said, wait, a woman will never work. Look at Milton Berle and look at Steve Allen, and it's not going to work. And they said, we don't care. It says in our contract we can do it. So it's funny how life works. Yeah.
Again, in the top 2, 3 of comedy shows ever.
It still plays really well today. Yeah.
It still does. Absolutely.
Funny.
And she talks about it with such love in her heart.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett.
She's still doing pretty well even today. She actually.
Well, that's because she married a much younger man.
Hey.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Absolutely.
Kept her juices flowing.
All right. Well, I guess I'm up. The second one that I wanted to bring through, because I thought it'd be kind of a fascinating person to talk with, was Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. So he was a guy that had a lot of fame worldwide. He certainly crossed a lot of different areas of the world. And so I kind of want to get his perspective on, what he thought his journey was all about here and on the other side. And, maybe that's connected to animals, I really appreciate. So he was very connected to animals. So, he actually was born, I made a note here, 1962, and then he died in 2006. That's when he actually passed away. Remember, that was that stingray accident that was very bizarre. But he actually said from a very early age, he knew that his whole life purpose was about animal conservation. And he was immediately attracted, I guess his parents or his father was involved in reptiles. So a lot of people at the time did, crocodiles and snakes. That's not like a koala bear, you know what I mean? But he really felt a kinship to reptiles in general, and felt that he could really do a lot of good in that area. And it's interesting. I'll just a quick footnote here. It's kind of reminding me that, when his whole life journey ended, and when that stingray accident happened, he was concerned for a little bit, because he actually thought that it wasn't going to be the end. When it happened, he said, I'm still going to be okay. And then he realized pretty fast he wasn't. And so he was able to say goodbye, at least to a couple of the mates that he had around him at the time. That is, there were some shipmates or a guy on the boat, right? He was off doing some filming at the time. But he was just telling me that right about the time that he realized it's not going to go well, did it
go through his heart or something?
It did. The barb went through his heart. Yeah. Through, I guess, the main arterial artery.
But he still lived for a little bit.
he did. He thought, I'm okay. Like, I think it just got me in the lung. I'm okay. But the point I'm going to make, and he was making here, was that one of the things that really gave him a lot of solitude, he saw his mother recently. His mother had passed away like 6 years before that from a car accident, is what he was. And so he actually, the first person when he saw his mother showing up, like, this is not going to end well, because why is my mother here? That kind of thing. So he was sharing that with me. But anyway, rewinding a little bit on his career, he always felt that his mission was to really bring awareness of conservation and get zoos the kind of funding they needed, right? Zoos were having trouble getting funding, and start wildlife preserves. So he got all that done. He also felt he could make a bridge with a lot of politicians. So there are a lot of politicians that weren't necessarily keen, if you will, on wildlife preserves and spending money in those areas. But he gained such kind of notoriety as kind of a semi-star, if you will, people knew him, fame, that politicians would listen to him. So he felt that was a great gift. And he also felt that he was making it very clear to me that he's completely proud and over the moon of his family, his wife and his son and his daughter, for continuing all the work they've done. They've completely continued the work that he started and have done just a fantastic job. But, he really wanted to make it clear to me that he wants everybody that's listening today, that everybody, if you have a dream and your dream resonates with your heart, go for it completely. Don't listen to anybody else and what they're telling you to do. So if in your heart you feel it's to save animals and be the spokesperson for reptiles, make sure that's what you do. And last but not least, he just said, Sterling, he goes, it was kind of funny that the way I got taken out, for all the times I messed with crocodiles and all that, I got taken out by a barb on a stingray. But he told me in a very loving way, he blessed the stingray that took his life, because the stingray actually, that was his life path. That was an exit point. But the stingray was actually very fearful at the time. And so it was a little bit of a reactionary thing. And he kind of somehow, like, I bless the stingray, I show love to the stingray. I understand the stingray was fearful at the time, but it was also my exit path. So a wonderful guy, a very humble guy. And he also said that he endured like a lot of bad press at times because people thought he was doing everything for tourism in Australia, but he was really doing it for the good of the animals. You want to make that very clear.
Oh, yeah.
But there were a lot of people that doubted him, though, when he was here. He was telling me that thought you got a secondary motive. It's about tourism and you're getting paid. And he said, no, it was all about the wildlife. I just got a cold chill. So that was one of the messages you want to get across. So lovely guy, but that's
man.
Steve Irwin. Yeah, the
Did he
crocodile.
say anything about his children, how proud he is of them?
Well, he did. Yeah, he was just saying earlier, as we were just talking, that he was very proud of, I think his daughter was Mindy, his daughter Mindy, and I forget the name, or Bindi, I'm sorry, I think it's Bindi. But very proud of them, the way they've continued on in the mission. And
his dream. Yep.
Yeah, he was sorry for all the grief they experienced when he passed, because it was a shock to the system. But they got, very proud of him. So great guy. I mean, nothing bad about him at all. He's definitely a very kind spirit. So.
That's great. That's great.
Lovely.
Okay, that's Steve Irwin. So I guess next up is Linda.
Linda.
Uh-huh.
Okay, my last but not least is Patsy Cline, who I love. I love her music. She was born September 8th, a Virgo like us, 32. She died in Virginia. She died 3/5/63 in a plane crash.
Mm-hmm.
She's been hit up by psychics before, she said. It's like, all right, who's next? She was married twice. I think her last husband's name was Charlie Dick was his name. She was married to a Gerald Klein, and then she was married to a Charlie. Her and Charlie were like, he could be mean, but there was quite a connection, and they had 2 children together. But one of the first things she said to me, which I didn't even know, was that all was forgiven with her father. So something major happened with her biological father. And when I was trying to see what the heck was going on, apparently she had been molested by him for a long time. They moved and moved, and then he took off and abandoned the family. And it was just mama and her and I think another child. And but all is forgiven, she said. But that pain, that heartache lingered in her soul system, you know, that's that mark that sometimes she completed what she needed to do. Now his soul system is still going through whatever he needs to go through. The main thing is she's not holding it on anymore. But as much as she loved performing, as much as it was in her blood, she loved being home with her husband and children. She was more of a homebody. You know, she wasn't like, when's the next concert? Because it was like, I even feel Charlie pushed her to do this and do this, whereas her idea of a good time was staying home with the kids and watching TV and doing fun stuff like that. But she loved, but in that moment, she knew she was going to die. Her focus was on those babies. Like, dear God, no, boom. Then she was dead. So she, because the way the movie said, it was like she hit a mountain, some sort of mountain, but she knew it was coming. I see more trees involved, but she knew it was coming. So she's very thrilled that people loved her voice and love everything, but she's saying that all that fame and fortune, she would take it back just to sit with her kids. You know, she really loves them. She's around them all the time. He's dead now. Charlie is, so he's over there. And he really wanted to keep her alive. Like when they did her story, the famous movie about her. Didn't that lady win an Academy Award too, playing her? I think she did, Jessica something.
Jessica Lange.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but Charlie made sure he released a double album of all her greatest hits, and it sold like wildfire. So he knew where to make the money. That's who Charlie was. So Charlie was always pushing her for the next thing. But truthfully, if it was up to her, kind of like me as a Virgo, if it was up to me, I'd just grab myself a nice sandwich and watch TV. You know, because part of what we do here, we do it to help enlighten and get people going, but it's definitely something that at times I think I would rather just eat a sandwich or watch TV. That's the feeling I got from her. A sense of, and listen, spiritually, she had some work to do when she headed over there. It wasn't like she went straight into a realm of you know, the heavens opening, but she had to go through some work because there was so much heartache with her. And it was a dog-eat-dog world, she's telling me, and women were not appreciated. And she had to do some forgiving, but she did love her family. She loved her mama. And that father really stopped her in her tracks.
Terrible.
And she passed away pretty young, didn't she?
Yeah, well, she died in 63 and she was born in 32. So she was born at 33, 43, 53, 63. So she was a little over 30 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she started.
But she had a feeling she was going to die young, by the way. That's what she told me.
And I think
somebody told me to buy a book of hers that's a real book about her. And it took me a while to find it. And I had to pay a lot of money for it because it's out of print. And I'll have to look at that book and see. But what were you going to say? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that I think she started her singing career very young. She was recognized as a talent very young. And I don't remember all the details, but I think her father did push her out there, maybe to help the family make money, that kind of a thing. So she had a rough life, even from an early age. Yeah.
But he was molesting her, for goodness sakes. That's the truth. Just terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was thanking everybody. I don't think she's thanking another body. I think she's over there waiting on her children. I think she'll be happy to see them. Mama's over there. Charlie's over there. Gerald, you know, there was a purpose for that, but not that huge. She wasn't married to Gerald very long. So
great, wonderful. What wonderful lady, left a huge imprint on the industry, right? I mean, one of the greats. You know, there's a handful, at least a dozen of greats in country music, and she was certainly one of them. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right that
you know, it was the men in her life that were always taking her and pushing her to do things.
Yeah.
And because if it was up to her, I'm telling you, she was telling me basically I could be lazy, but she loved chit-chatting with Loretta Lynn and everybody. And she would be very real in her conversation. She would just say what she felt. People would laugh.
Very true. Very
She was a
true.
Virgo, you know?
That's right.
Wonderful.
Are you a Virgo too, Sterling?
I'm
No,
September 10th.
I'm an Aries.
Oh,
You're an Aries. Oh.
who knew, huh? I would not pick him out to be. I'm more of a
No.
Pisces than a Aries.
Yeah.
I tell you what's interesting is my wife is an Aries as well. So two Aries aren't always supposed to get along, but really do get along, wonderfully. So that's kind of unique too. I thought I'd throw that in there. Two Aries, not supposed to.
That's great.
Okay, I picked another comedian for the third and final, and I picked Joan Rivers.
Great choice.
So Joan Rivers was a pioneer for women in comedy, alongside people like Phyllis Diller, etc., but certainly one of the pioneers, breaking the barriers. She passed away at 81. Obviously, we know she passed away from complications to cosmetic surgery, unfortunately. She was the first woman to host a late night show. So she had started out sort of in small venues and cabarets, and then she got in a movie, and then she was doing stand-up and all these things. So she did a variety of different things, but she's most known for stand-up and a bit of her outrageousness. She was very frank in her comedy, and she said she was doing satire, and if people didn't like it, well, what can she do? That's how I don't know how she fared today with, things you're allowed to say and not say. Be interesting to see. So anyways, I asked her, what was comedy to you? Well, it brought her a lot of success, but most importantly, it brought her balance and happiness. Why? Because she could trust it. It was one thing in her life that she could trust. She knew she had talent. She could use her voice, and it was hers. It didn't belong to anybody else. It was her talent. It also got her through a lot of pain and fear. A lot of people, including my family, we use jokes to get through things. So I think that's how she sort of got through life as well. She also received a lot of criticism, probably because of a woman and the way she was speaking, right? And it was a boys' club. She also got death threats through her career, which is really crazy to think that would happen to a female comedian or any comedian. So I said, what did you feel about criticism? Well, she was confused. Like, why are they picking on me or getting mad at me when I'm just trying to make people laugh? She thinks that there was a bit of backstabbing. But eventually she just let it go. She wasn't going to let it kill her. She accepted it and just lived her own bliss, her joy. So it must be hard to have, I felt like when I was reading on her that she was like this, almost like a battle tank. Like she had gone through so much and had to build a thick skin from all the shots she was taking, right?
Right.
So she had to become very strong and just let it go. So she was the first woman to host a late night show. However, it was up against Johnny Carson. So I asked her, what did she think of Johnny Carson? So she said, the magician. He could wield magic. He could make or break you if you were on his show at the time. That's how much power he had, and he helped launch her career. However, she created a late night talk show that went up against him, I think without his blessing, and it didn't go very well.
He didn't talk to her.
Didn't talk to her. She was forbidden from being on his show. Even his predecessors didn't have her on. I believe maybe once towards the end she was on. I said, how do you feel about all of that? The fool, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. She's seen the light. Now she knows it wasn't worth the money. It wasn't worth, not that she shouldn't have had her own show, but she probably could have done it a little differently, maybe get his buy-in. It didn't have to be exactly against his time slot. He also could have maybe let go a bit, but
he was he didn't care about, good for you. You know, I'm glad you're
Yeah, he
moving
could have been a
forward.
little bit
He
more
was a
benevolent,
Scorpio.
but
He decided she was worthless and he cut
yeah,
her out,
yeah.
like he
And
did his children too. He cut anybody out he didn't agree with.
yeah, which is really unfortunate. She did pay a price for that. It is sad, but she carried on. She did go on. She wanted, I was trying to ask some other questions, but she wanted to make sure Melissa got a message.
Okay.
She's sorry that she didn't recover from the surgery. She wasn't expecting to pass, and she knows Melissa took it as a big blow, but she wants her to know it was her destiny, and that it's okay. And for Melissa to just look at it that way, change her perception, just enjoy herself, and don't have any insecurities. So I don't know if Melissa's going through something, but she's sorry she left you, is what she wanted to say. She wasn't expecting to go. They were really bonded.
They were really bonded.
Really bonded, that mother-daughter.
Oh, Melissa was more like the mother.
So really, a little, I think she was very small in stature, but boy, what a tough woman. She really went through a lot to get the success that she had, and all the criticism and the boys club. She said she would go on tour with like all the big guys at the time. And even though she was part of it, she said she never felt part of it because there was still that,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
She broke it. She broke it for the rest of us comedians. I'll tell you something. There is a movie about her, if you can see it, about her life. I think that came out before she died. She went plummeted. I mean, this lady, you want to talk about someone who got back up and did it again. And she was at the top of her game when she died. But I was on an airplane and I had bought her book on audio, and I was all relaxed, getting ready to listen to her book. I was laughing so hard I had to turn it off because I was going to pee my pants. It was so hysterical. Her books are hysterical.
Yes, so a big thanks to Joan Rivers for being a pioneer and taking a lot of the arrows, right? A lot of the beatings and the criticism and the, you know, all that stuff.
I think both Joan and Phyllis Diller, for example, really blazed the trail for women in comedy. When, you know, obviously there's a lot of old thinking when they thought, well, women can't be funny kind of a thing.
Right.
And they really blazed the trail. You know, it's interesting. Never met Joan. We ran him a few times in the E offices on Wilshire Boulevard. So never really spent any time with them. You see him walking through the lobby, she and Melissa. But what's interesting was, I remember when Edgar committed suicide, her husband committed suicide. You know, she was devastated, but boy, did she ever pick herself up and just keep plowing through. Yep. And this is about a year ago, I brought Joan Rivers through. I thought it was interesting. I did talk with Joan, but one of the things she told me, it was kind of funny, when she got to the other side, when she met up with Edgar, one of the first things she said is, if you ever do that again, I'm going to kill you personally. If you ever leave me.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. I think I was on your show, Linda, when I brought her through or something.
Yeah,
that was the first thing she said. Listen, if you ever do that, I'm going to kill you first, because she loved Edgar.
And if the audience has time, I want you to Google or go on YouTube and look for celebrity ghost stories. Mm-hmm. Both Rivers and Phyllis Diller had the best ghost stories that they went through. Joan went through one in New York with a lady that used to live there. It's a fascinating story. She even hired some voodoo woman to come get rid of the ghost. And Phyllis Diller had the most amazing story. So if you can look up celebrity ghost stories, it's no longer a show. I think I bought the CDs on that too, or the DVDs on that too. And fascinating stories. And so they believed in life after death, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So wonderful. All good. Well, I guess we're for the last person. And I tried to kind of go far and wide and broad, so to speak, because I kind of looked at, you know, famous dead people. And so I thought that an interesting person would be Ludwig van Beethoven. So obviously a very famous musical influence, on the world. And but a very interesting, challenging life. So here's somebody that was raised in a very difficult home, even though his grandfather and father were very musical, had big backgrounds in music. And so remember, you always choose your parents before you come down here. It's interesting, Beethoven chose the parents and the family we want to come into. And he was certainly gifted, but he was just telling me in the early stages of his life, he really felt he was a better musician than a composer. Now, the world ended up knowing him as a composer, but in the early stages, it's like, I guess he wanted a little bit of the fame. He thought, I'm a musician and I want a little more of the fame. It didn't work out. He was also talking about some very influential times in his career, but he finally did leave home or move to Vienna when he was 21, so still a very young guy. And at that time, Mozart took him under his wing. And so he's talking about that was a very pivotal moment in his life when Mozart said, I'm going to spend time with you, take you under my wing. Now, a lot of people, and another humorous thing Beethoven told me, he said, Sterling, I want to get this on the table right away. I said, sure, what's that? He said, everybody that talks about me divides my life into 3 different stages. He goes, I never do that. So people talk about like the early years in Vienna, or like the middle years or the end years when he was just trying to regain his youth. Like he said, I never really moved into new music very well, which, you know, it's kind of funny as my experience, you know, in the music industry, every number of years or every decade, you know, music moves on. It goes from romantic to rock to grunge to, and you always find artists who don't want to move to the next genre. And he was saying, I was kind of that guy, you know, when everything moved from classical to romantic, you know, I got romantic a little bit, but I backed off. He was also saying that with the whole body of work that he did, that he only wrote one opera, Fidelio, or I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it now, but it was just one opera, but a lot of other, you know, types of music. And one of the other things he was talking about, you want to kind of shift gears and talk about his medical challenges. So he had some severe medical challenges and human challenges we'll talk about in a second here, but medical challenges, he lost his hearing, so losing at a very young age, and had tinnitus or tinnitus. So, you know, people pronounce the word, you know, tinnitus differently, but the ringing in the ears. And it made him very socially awkward. It made it very hard to do the music work he was doing. But he completely plowed through. It was very difficult, but he plowed through. So here's a message for people hearing this. You know, don't give up your dreams. I had a very hard time, even though people, he said, now in later years, people look at me as a musical genius, and I had it easy and it all flowed. And yes, it all flowed from the other side with all of that creative gift, that mind muscle that connects with the other side. But he said, I had a lot of very severe challenges, but I made it through it. And notwithstanding on the human side, he had a lot of financial challenges, legal challenges. His kind of life was a mess, but he never stopped. And he's very proud of the body of work. And he's very proud that at this point going forward, a lot of musical people lean on him as, you know, this is a legacy of music. He says, Sterling, my music still holds up today. I said, yeah, it does. It does. So he's very proud of all that. And really a wonderful guy. And you think about him as a person in history, but he really was a man with a lot of very human problems. And boy, you know, a lot of people would never have created that body of work or channeled the other side with all the financial and legal and tinnitus and hearing loss, all the things he went through. So he said, part of my lasting gift to the world was really the people understand your gift, move forward with your gift, and really be a blessing to the world. And then he kind of like faded out. After he said that, he kind of like just faded out. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like the end of a sonata. I just got a cold chill. It's like faded out. So nice guy.
How old was he when he died?
I got to go back and look. I think I made a note on that somewhere. 56. 56. So he made it, you know, certainly a lot of other, he was in the 27 club, right? You know, he made it to 56.
Right.
But
Scott, I mean, Sterling, did you ever get to meet him?
Beethoven? No. It's funny. We had a connection to Beethoven, though. It's interesting because when we got our Saint Bernard, that was a very famous movie, right? Beethoven, about the Saint Bernard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
And actually, I kind of at first wanted to name our Saint Bernard Beethoven. It's got my connection. And Linda was like, no. And then we're naming him Einstein. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay. So, but did he take other lives at all, or did he mention that?
For me, he's still on the other side. He has not taken another life yet. but he's working diligently with a lot of musical, he identified for me, he was working with people like John Williams, right? John Williams done a lot of film scores, right?
Wow.
John Williams obviously worked with Steven Spielberg for a lot of years, and John Williams scores are like across almost every motion
Oh, yeah.
picture. But he said he actually enjoyed working with people like John Williams. He called them out by name. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why he came into my head
Mhm.
about a week ago or so. I heard him say or whatever that he could feel music. So he couldn't hear it, but he could feel it on some level. And that's how he was able to write.
Yeah, and it was all part of
How do you write all this music, right? So he
Right.
could feel it. I don't know if that makes sense, but do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
It does. And I think the one thing I got from his life too is that a lot of people think that he was just a complete genius and it just flowed automatically. But he was just telling me that there was a ramp to all that, just like the way Mozart took him under his wing. There was a ramp. You could be born a genius in this world. Look, there are some kids that at 5 years old can play complete sonatas or whatnot, at 5 years old. Now but he wasn't that person, right? He had to kind of grow into his gift. So it's kind of interesting understanding who he was. And the health challenges were awful. People with tinnitus right now, they ringing in the ears, very hard to function, right?
Very hard.
Interesting.
Excellent reading.
Well, that brings us full circle, I think, to all the dead famous people we had for today. It was a great round robin. It's
Very good.
always great spending time with the girls, and the family, and we'll have to do it again. And I think we haven't picked a date for next month, August, but the next Dead Famous will be on Andrea's channel.
So look at Andrea's channel, you guys, when she posts, give the names.
Exactly.
Lilac Lantern Tarot. Hi, I'm Andrea.
And don't forget Gregory Peck.
Right, you'll have to do Gregory Peck. And I think you owe a Davy Jones as well.
Oh, yes.
I want to hear
I forgot about
Jones.
Davy.
Yes.
Great. Great.
So we will see you next month for another episode.
We will. We'll pick the date and then we'll announce it on our community boards. Everybody knows, and we'll continue on. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out. Always great, Lynn, to get together. Always great, Andrea. Well, sincere pleasure. Couldn't hang out with two nicer
The snacks
people.
would have been a little better, but yeah, it was nice.
Fantastic.
I'm still waiting for my nachos, but they never showed.
They're on the way. All right. All the best, everybody. We'll end it here. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Take care.